leader is the honesty, integrity, and ethics. They should be acting as a role model, and they have to have their own passion and allow their people to have their own passion as well. Now, we are going to talk about a little bit about the great global leaders. We start with Swami Vivekananda, who doesn't need any introduction. So he came to Chicago at the first Parliament of the World Religion on September 11, 1893, and he electrified the audience. Swamiji went around different places within the US, came to India, and then started Ramakrishna Mission and the Mutt at in the Belur Mutt in Kolkata. Now we have been associated with the Ramakrishna Mission, so I'll talk about it briefly through our foundation, Blind Foundation for India, where the mission is extremely active, supporting blind people in providing them the prevention, vitamin A, cure, cataract operations, rehabilitation, etc. Then Nelson Mandela, he was put in a solitary confinement for 27 years. When he was released without any bitterness, he worked with the white African people, became the president of the African National Congress, a wonderful leader. Abraham Lincoln, he comes from the Illinois area where Chicago is located, and he is one of the most revered US president in the history. And during his time, a civil war broke out where the southern colonies wanted to separate out from the northern colonies. President Lincoln did not want to have that separation, so civil war was fought under his watch. He won the war, but he paid the price. He was shot dead at a theater after the civil war had just ended. Then we all know about Mahatma Gandhi, the sacrifices he made to free India from the British Raj. Bottom left, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the only president in the US elected 4 times, particularly during the Depression, 1929-1933, due to the economic collapse here in the US and around the world. He started out with many social schemes to put people into the job and get some food on the table. Bottom right, young President John F. Kennedy excited the United States and around the world. Under his vision of putting a man on the moon, the NASA created a mission to take the man on the moon, and within less than a decade, Neil Armstrong reached the moon. Two gentlemen in the middle, Dr. W. Edwards Deming and Dr. Joseph Juran, are the father of quality management. They both were sent by the US government to Japan to rebuild the industrial economy after the World War II. And they taught Japanese how to do process improvement, quality management. They took it seriously. And because of those learnings, they produced the best automobiles and electronics in the world. And US also caught up after they returned from Japan. And when Japan started surging and Germany and Japan were beating US in the industrial output, they started listening to these experts as well. So as you notice here, these leaders in the global scene, they served the humanity, and some of them paid the price with their own life as well. And people who responded on the stacking order, the one of the great leader, Swami Vivekananda came number 1, followed by Mahatma Gandhi, then Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King Jr. from the US. Now, these kind of pre-session poll are more like icebreakers, so people begin to think about the issues they're going to be understanding and talking about, and that is very important. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and take any questions you may have, and through the chat box, and let's see. So let me see where the chat box questions are.
Participants, you can post your questions in the chat box, please.
And I'm trying to find the chat box here, or maybe Shilpiji, you can read a question and I'll be happy to
So
answer.
right now there are no questions.
Okay, that's fine. I'll give them a minute. If there is anything we need to clarify, we'll take it. If not, we'll continue.
Sure, sir.
Okay, now I got the chat here.
The question Dr. Prabhu Shankar asks, how can manage a crisis?
How to manage a crisis?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is where you need a leader who understands the issue and is able to put together a team of experts who could figure out what the right course of action is. Because a leader is the one who may not have all the answers, but he or she will know to pull together a very competent team which will work on the issues and try to figure out best course of action. Next question.
So the next question is how to become a leader in a technical education institute?
Yeah. So that requires subject matter expertise first. And second thing is, and one of the things we'll be talking briefly about, how do you engage your learners in the classroom? Because you may be very good, but if you cannot engage your students, your learners, cannot excite them, what is coming through in the program, then that knowledge will not be complete. So you look at it this way, we as a faculty are the transmitter, but you need the receiver at the other end, which are well tuned and they are able to absorb the messages we are sending and able to do something with it and put it into action. So that is the role of the faculty, to excite the learners. And then when they are fully excited and then very receptive, they can learn something and be useful for them to apply it. We'll take a few more questions.
Yeah. Dr. Bhavani asks, how does a leader deal with situations when there is a clash between management and subordinates?
Yeah. Yeah, so the leader has to first identify what the issues are and try to bring those issues in a team fashion and work with your people, ask for their opinion. And that is one of the most empowering thing, when you ask your people, what do you think about the situation? And collectively you decide what's the best course of action. So when there is a conflict between the subordinate and the top people, they need to play their role properly and try to identify the issue without attacking the people. I'll take a couple more.
Yeah, Dr. Kiran Mane asks, how to teach leadership skills in classroom setting?
Yeah. So first we need to share with them some of the great examples of the outstanding leaders, and we can learn from their lifestyle and their life's work. Secondly, each one of us are leader in our own capacity. A lot of time we don't know that we have those capacities within us. So we need to sort of discuss with them the ways in which they can exhibit their great leadership traits, and also do some role plays, ask them to work on some specific assignments around the leadership, give them some situation where if they are put in charge, how will they handle it? And how will they find the best solutions in a given situation? So case study approach, role plays, etc., are very, very useful in this situation. And we'll take one more question and back to the presentation.
Okay. Miss Rachna asks, which quality will you rate as the highest for a person a good leader?
Yeah. So the highest quality, and I would say fundamental for any leader, is to be ethical, honest, and have the highest integrity. That should be the foundation. Once they have that, they can start picking up the additional traits and characteristics needed depending on the situation they are dealing with. But the foundation has to be very solid. And when they have that foundation, they will do outstanding job in leading the situation assigned to them or given to them.
Thank
Okay, yeah. One more, Shilpiji.
Okay, fine. Mr. Alok John asks, how can we practice conscious leadership in the present scenario?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we all are under stress, right? So all the faculties, they have to teach online, stay home, lock down, take care of the family, children, whatever. So under this situation, we need to ensure, first of all, the safety and well-being of our own people within the family unit. And at the same time, think about people who are struggling and how can we help them. So a little bit extending yourself beyond thinking about yourself only, and then try to engage your students through the digital means and try to be mindful that they are under stress as well. So do not create extra stress, but help them to achieve what the objectives you set out and try to make it more meaningful to them. And one thing I would suggest that all of us as a faculty needs to have some industrial exposure. So when we are teaching to the classroom in the classroom setting, we can bring some practical examples for sharing, which essentially excites people to learn more about it. So with that, I'm going to go back in the interest of time. And I just wanted to break up the monotony so it's not a straight 1 hour lecture. Okay, so this is an interesting way of looking that if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. So leadership is not about being a boss or being in charge. It is about how do we serve our people so that they achieve the best in terms of getting the objectives done, using the right resources, providing them the best resources, and make sure that they are successful. Now, next 4 slides are the special one. Yesterday, I was working with uh, the National Institute of Technical Teachers Training Center out of Chennai, where they had the FDP about leadership, about the emotional intelligence. And I talked about leadership and emotional intelligence. So these 4 specific slides focuses on the leadership intelligence. There are 3 different types. The intellectual intelligence, we equate it to IQ. This is where our left brain is having a serial processing. Then there is emotional intelligence, EQ, where there is a parallel processing happening in our right side of the brain. And the third one is social intelligence, social quotient, SQ, where synchronous processing is happening in the whole brain. So leadership intelligence, I went through several articles. This is the case from the Darden Business Publishing from University of Virginia, where they pull together 3 components, IQ, EQ, and SQ. In the IQ, you look at the mental capacity, it all due to the genetic, and it's shaped by experiences, where Albert Einstein, you can put one of the person with the highest IQ in the world. Then we come to EQ, emotional quotient, which requires self-awareness, recognizing and managing our own emotions. And you cannot find another good example other than Mahatma Gandhi, who was master at recognizing best self-awareness and managing his own emotions. And you come to the SQ, where is listening, the empathy, and understanding others' emotions and helping them manage their emotions. And this is where Swami Vivekananda will fit in very nicely. So, as a leader, we need to have a component of IQ, EQ, and SQ. Now, let's take a worst case. You think about Adolf Hitler. He had a big IQ, but zero EQ and zero SQ. So, what did he do? He became the monster killing millions of Jews uh, in Germany. So, we do need to work on improving our IQ, EQ, and SQ. Now, in the emotional intelligence, there are four major domains and 12 traits. So, self awareness, self management, social awareness, and relationship management. Underneath, there are 12 different traits, which is emotional self awareness, self control, adaptability, achievement orientation, and positive outlook. In the social awareness, one need to be having an empathy and organization awareness. In the relationship management, influence, coach and mentor, conflict management, teamwork, and inspirational leadership, etc. And what are some of the benefit of emotional intelligence? If we have good EQ, it will improve our leadership. It will improve the teamwork. It will also help improving in the decision making and help in personal well-being. And simultaneously, it will reduce your work stress as well as reduces the employee turnover in any organization. So working on building the emotional intelligence, which is the essential part of leadership, will serve you very well. Now I'm going to segue into several good leadership models. We begin with Dr. Stephen Covey's model about 7 habits of highly effective people. This is a wonderful book. He talks about when you start out as an individual, you need to master 3 habits. Habit 1, be proactive. 2, begin with the end in mind. 3, put first things first. So when you master those 3 habits, you have achieved the private victory. You move from dependence to independence. Once you come to the workplace, you need to focus on 3 additional habits. Think win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood, and synergize. When you master those 3 skills, you achieve the public victory and then move from independence to interdependence. And as we know in the work setting, things get done in the team format. So interdependence is extremely critical for the success. And in the 7th habit, you continue to sharpen the saw. What good things you have done, you continue to work on it. And this is a wonderful book. I will highly recommend. You can get a paperback book, the second-hand copy at a fraction of the cost. Now, people were asking Dr. Covey that you talked about effectiveness. What about the greatness? So he wrote the book called The Eighth Habit. And the focus of the book on the 8th habit was listening to your inner voices and allow others to listen to theirs. And collectively, you can build the greatness to last for the organization. Unfortunately, after writing his book a few years back, he was around the age of 74, riding on a bicycle without an helmet. He fell down and he passed away. Now, there are 2 graphics, so let's work through that. On the left-hand side, it's a new age of civilization. As we know, in the old days, hunting and gathering was the only thing people were able to do. Then they moved into the agriculture economy. 1801, steam engine was invented in the UK, and the world was ushered into the industrial era. In last 60 years, we are in the knowledge economy, and now we are moving into mobile economy. Hopefully, down the road, we should get enough wisdom not to fight, which is the sad thing happening around the world. And a whole person paradigm, as a person to be effective, and particularly as a leader, they need to engage their mind, body, spirit, and the heart. Now, as I mentioned, the foundation of the eighth habit is to find your voice using your God-given birth gifts. And you need to find and express your voice by engaging your mind, body, heart, and spirit. Now, the table shows that in any organization, there will be chronic problems. And in order to solve those problems, first identify them, solve them, you need to be fully engaged with your spirit, mind, body, and the heart. And the leaders need to display four different roles. They provide the pathfinding, they provide the modeling, that's the role modeling. They align the people with around the right objectives, and they empower people. Empowerment means the leadership is expecting people to deliver results, but at the same time, they are given the flexibility to make necessary changes to get the good results. Now, this is the model known as a tipping point leadership about a work done in the public sector by a person named William Bratton. He worked with the Boston Mass Transit, Boston Police Department, New York Mass Transit, New York Police Department during 25 years of his public service. His leadership was written up by sorry, two faculty from INSEAD, the Harvard of Europe, outside of Paris in France. And the essence of the tipping point leadership is that in any organization, there'll be four different types of hurdles, and it's the role of the leaders to overcome these hurdles. So the story in the article is written in the Harvard Business Review that around 1990, New York was the murder capital of the world. People were afraid to ride on the subway or the train during the daytime because there was so much robbery and mugging going on. William Bratton asked his managers not to drive car to work, but take the train and come to work. Moment the managers started riding, they realized how horrible the situation was. And by putting people in front of the problem, you can overcome the cognitive hurdle. That means you cannot deny there is not an issue here. And solving any difficult problem, you need to realize to the people that there is an issue. They have to accept it. Then you can find a solution. Second thing, none of the organizations have unlimited resources. So he had one precinct where there was a narcotics or the illegal drug issue, temporarily infuse lot of police force and try to tackle the problem and then disperse that force on the next big issue. So you need to prioritize your resources on the big issues. Third, he had 80 precincts where the captain of each of the precincts were given a specific goal to achieve on a weekly basis. One or two of them who have achieved the great results, he will allow them to share their findings in front of their peers. So he was putting a spotlight on people, those who had done great work, and motivate others through peer pressure. And the last one, to overcome the political hurdle. So William Bratton, in order to tackle the big issue of the problem of mugging and the bad situation in New York City, he came up with a simple idea: one strike and you are out. In other words, either a person steals a loaf of bread or commits a murder, they both go to jail. Now, the prison system is managed by the legislative branch, and they got worried that if we put a lot of people behind bar, we do not have the room for them, and you cannot build a new prison overnight. It takes at least a couple of years to build the new buildings and equip it to receive the new prisoners. The William Bratton kept the mayor Rudy Giuliani on his side. He convinced the mayor that let's go through this and ultimately we will be successful. Mayor gave full support. So he overcame the political hurdle by sort of bypassing the naysayers. And sure enough, first year there was a huge spike of number of people behind bar, but then things started getting in the right direction, and the New York is no longer the murder capital of the world. Wonderful work in the public sector. The next example and the model is from Jim Collins, a researcher from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. He has come up with a number of books, and this book is about good to great, another great paperback book. He came up with a metaphor to put the right people on the bus and give them flexibility and freedom to drive the bus in the right direction. So, in other words, when you are tackling a huge challenge, first gather the right people, the disciplined people, give them freedom to do disciplined thinking, and out of it, they will prioritize and work on one or two critical issues and bring the disciplined action, which will build the greatness to last for the organization. Now, perfect example at the India scene will be Tata Sons. There, they are one of the great company in the Indian context. And since 1994, they've adopted the US Baldrige Performance Excellence Framework 100%. They call it a Tata Business Excellence Model. And they've benefited immensely by doing the systematic improvement in the organization. And here we have a Southwest Airlines owned and managed by employees, and they are the most profitable. And Walgreens Pharmacy, which distributes the medications. So they are the great companies cited by Jim Collins. Now, Jim wrote another article in the Harvard Business Review about level 5 leadership. So what are those levels? And I'm going to take this at the top so we can get everything proper. Highly capable individual, that's a level 1. Next level, you are a contributing team member, then you become a competent manager, then you are effective leader, still not a level 5 leader. Level 5 executive, according to Jim Collins, is a combination of humility and will. By humility, he meant that when good results come, leader will share the credit with everyone who contributed. And when something goes wrong, he or she alone will take all the blame. And the will means when the strategic plan is developed, the leader will persist at all cost to make sure that the objectives are achieved and organization benefits, and they are not there for the personal publicity. Now, when he wrote the article from Fortune 500 companies here, he could barely find 0.4% of the executive to qualify for leader 5 executive with a great humility and the will. Now, here is about Lincoln on leadership. During his time in the White House, when the Civil War has broken out, now what happened was the northern colonies were more focused on industrial production and they neglected building the militia or the military. Southern colonies, due to better weather, they were more focused on agriculture and they were employing a lot of African American slaves to work in the plantations. And they wanted to separate out from the North. President didn't want any part of separation of the United States. So he started building up the army for the northern colonies. And when the new people were recruited to join the army, they passed through Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. And President would come out personally from the White House, his residence, to meet and greet the new recruits. So the lesson is our leaders need not be sitting in the ivory tower giving the orders. They need to be circulating with their people to find out how things are going and see if there are any blockages and any resources to be opened up. He was very big on persuasion and never coercing anybody to take any action. He was known as a honest Abe. Honesty and integrity were his best policies. He was leading by being led. He was truly a level 5 leader. Item 11 is very instructive. During the 2 years of civil war, he appointed almost 8 different generals. People wanted a title of a general, but they did not have the capacity to fight because of the split loyalties. Some of the friends and relatives may be fighting on the other side of the war. Finally, he found General Grant, who was a great tactician and a superb leader who defeated the southern colonies and won the war for the North, and the United States remained intact. And Lincoln was master of public speaking. If you do a Google search, the Gettysburg Address, 4.5 minute simple speech, secondary speech he delivered at a cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to dedicate the lives of the soldiers who fought to keep the United States intact. It is the masterpiece on public speaking. And Lincoln was great at storytelling. So, leaders in the organization, when they start telling the story, connecting the past, sharing what happened in the past, what is the current way where the organization is going, people get very excited and they want to go with the leader. So the leader is somebody that can lift others into their better selves. And one of the sign of a great leader is they will create more leaders rather than just the followers. Now, I'll share with you some of the things I've been working on, starting with the formation of my own company, Business Excellence Inc., in the year 2000. So the focus of achieving the business excellence is you need to have some wonderful ideas. How do we achieve the excellence in your organization? For that, you need people. When the ideas are brainstormed, the people will do the prioritization, work on a specific issue, which is the most critical. And when the action is taken, you need to review the results. And when the results are good, you need to take time out to celebrate. This is one thing we do not do enough in life, in any domain. We expect people to do the work and we take them for granted. Only time they hear from us is from the leadership is when something goes wrong, they get the reprimand. But when good things happen, they're never appreciated enough. So celebration is a missing link, one of the lever. We all need to use it properly. I wrote a short blog on leadership paradigm, creating economic value on the y-axis, empathy on the x-axis, 4 quadrants. The top right quadrant, the servant leadership. Focus is on sacrifice and service. You can count very few servant leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, etc. Top left is the value leadership, focus on growth and profit. So this is where the C-suite will come into play. Particularly, lot of people in the C-suite, they are not very empathetic with their people. In the Western world, they have a very short mandate. In 2 to 3 years, they have to turn around the ship for the organization. If they fail to do that, they are asked to leave the company. Of course, they bail out with the golden parachute per the contract. Bottom right, this is where all of us come into existence. This is the knowledge leadership where all the educators with the focus on caring and sharing. I put it this way, when we receive the students entering the institutes, they are like a rough diamond. They have all the capabilities, but they don't know about it. It's the role of the faculty is to continue to polish them and let them shine by the time they are ready to graduate and do wonderful things in real life. And bottom left is the bad news, the position leadership, where the front and middle level management group misuse and play the politics and misuse their power. The research shows that when the frontline supervisor or a manager are not taking care of their people, they leave the organization. Now I want to share with you one of the simple model but elegant model about my classes last 28 years as an adjunct faculty in operations management. My students in the classrooms are involved in their own learning, and when they learn something new, they are required to apply it in the project, in the cases, and they are required to be sharing it with the classmates. So everybody learns from each other. So the peer learning is one of the big component we need to focus on. Faculty can learn the best when they are learning in a collaborative way rather than solo learning. And we recently completed a FDP on NEP 2020 deployment under the umbrella of Indo-Universal Collaboration for Engineering Education, IUCEE, where 16 leaders from the capacity as a vice chancellor, director, principal, etc. They came together 7 Saturdays, 3 hours in the morning, India time. They worked on a number of issues on sustainability, leadership, talent management, project management, importance of community service, etc. Baldrige Excellence Framework for Self-Assessment. And they came together and learn in a collaborative way under the scientific guidance of expert faculty by doing a lot of introspection and reflection. So this acronym CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, I borrowed it, which is very famous in India, for faculty to learn the best way. Now, my basic model for teaching since last 28 years is to use the acronym CEO, collaborative, experiential, and outcome-based learning. So in my classes, when the class starts, there are teams formed and they're required to be cooperating with each other. Uh, During the semester, they study between 8 to 10 cases, articles from Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan, McKinsey Quarterly, etc. They have to do the project in the semester and share their findings in front of the peers, and outcome-based reflection journal, so that focuses on implementation with the main idea, what are the three learnings they have from the course, three key lessons they are going to implement, and how they are going to implement those three key lessons from the things they are learning in the course. Now in Sanskrit, there are many forms of teachers. Initially, when you share the information, you are Adhyapak. Adding knowledge to it, you become Upadhyay. When you add skills to the audience, you are Acharya. When you provide insight, you become Pandit. When you share your visionary thinking, you are Drishta. And ultimately, when you share your wisdom, you are the Guru. Keeping in mind that the faculties need to educate students by engaging, energizing, entertaining, and empowering them. So we need to use all these items as appropriate so that students and learners are fully engaged in the classroom. This is the roadmap for leadership excellence. One has to have the willingness to become a leader by having the commitment, involvement, and the accountability. Now, in order to become a better leader, we need to get some feedback about our own behaviors, because things we may be doing, we could be blindsided because we don't know what the negative impact others are feeling because of our behavior. So 360-degree feedback is a good tool to use, and particularly is used here on the Western side. 10% of the team is management, 90% are the working level. For the management group, 360 feedback is used where multiple inputs come in regarding person's contribution for the whole year. And then the analysis is done to find the area of strengths and areas for improvement. And based on that, short-term and long-term plan is created to maintain the top two strengths and work on the bottom two worst areas where you want to improve. Continue to build your skill, apply yourself, nurture yourself with the personal change, do the regular evaluation about the short-term and long-term plans against the goals, And when you are achieving success, celebrate it. Then you continue the path. Now, this comes from the US Baldrige framework, leadership core competencies. Their role is to create vision, mission, and values. They provide the strategic direction. They are the leaders are the one must be enforcing ethics with starting with themselves and for the organization. They do continuous review of the work getting done and allocate additional resources, build cohesive teams. They're excellent at talent management. Their simple role is to provide recognition, and that's the obligation of the leadership. They coach and mentor next level of leaders. So, quick example: GE, General Electric, the conglomerate with units all around the world. Their corporate training center, the CEO spends 50% of his personal time coaching, teaching upcoming leaders, about 250 to 300 in the pipeline, to share with them the vision, the mission, the values, what are some new innovative ways GE is moving forward. Of course, leaders lead the change. They should be master at communication. And biggest role the leaders must play is to ensure the sustainability for the organization for the long term. So this is about strategic planning and strategic direction. I cannot change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. And the great example about changing the strategic plan when the directions are changing, the business climate changes, technology changes, the regulatory requirement changes, like COVID came upon. Whatever old strategic plan you had, you have to put it out of the window and regroup and redo the strategic planning. So, a couple of great examples. Google is one of the best company. The average age of population is around 30 years, with a tremendous amount of perks they give to their employees. And they teach these 6 things to their managers, leaders, to become effective at what they do for the company. They subscribe to the growth mindset work done at the Stanford University by Dr. Carol Dweck, which says fundamentally intelligence can be cultivated. So if you fail at something, that's not terminal. You can always regroup and come back from the setback. Secondly, we talked about the emotional intelligence. Heightened sense of self-awareness, very important for the management. Manager transitions, when a person gets promoted, he or she will face a lot of frustration and challenges, so they can learn from their peers what their journey was about. Coaching, the role of the management on active listening, asking open-ended questions, etc. Very big on feedback across teams, balance both positive and negative. And big thing about decision making, they have a wonderful framework in which when the critical decisions are to be made, they discuss it in the team setting, get everybody's opinion, and then make wonderful decisions to benefit the organization and the people. So what sets apart a CEO? So you can think of your vice chancellor, director, deans, etc., who are better than the others in the similar space. So they have 4 specific things they do better than the others. They decide with speed and conviction. They move with the right amount of speed to take action. They engage for action by understanding the stakeholder priorities, and they engage their employees appropriately. They adapt proactively. So no matter how much planning you do, you cannot have enough playbooks ready. So when a new situation arises, they need to adapt. So practical case, when COVID came upon suddenly, people had to regroup and try to find a possible solution. And they deliver reliably by using the business management system to achieve the performance for the organization. Now I want to talk A little bit about the role of the leadership is being the socially responsible in the areas where you are operating. So I was very honored to receive the Tata Scholarship to come here for my graduate work at Illinois Institute of Tech. Their objective was to send good students abroad, get higher education, and they come back to India and help in the nation building. I could not come back, but back in 89, after learning that India has 15 million blind people, 1 out of 3 in the world, we started the foundation, Blind Foundation for India. We have a website, you can look it up, blindfoundation.org, with the simple mission to prevent and cure blindness and educate and rehabilitate permanently blind people in India. And with the grace of God, we have raised now $5 million, doing 230,000 free cataracts through our medical partners throughout India. 135 mobile vans given to take doctors and nurses to villages, do the screening, and bring the patient back for cataract operation at the hospitals. 10,000 braille kits to children to study with the sighted kids, and overall 1 million children and 1 million adults have benefited through the foundation's work. So that's free Chakshudan, 32nd years in the making. And Leadership Excellence series we started for the last 8 years, free Gyandan, teaching soft skills and quality management topics to over 9 lakh people in about 100 institutes in India. And the entire program is made public, written up on the American Society for Quality website. The link is shown here. And I'll be sharing my presentation with Dr. Kiranji, and you can feel free to share it with all the attendees. So the road to success is not crowded, because while most are looking for ways to take, the truly successful people are finding ways to give. And with a giving attitude, every situation is an opportunity for success. So my sincere request is that each one of us are capable of giving. We need to open up our heart, take one of the cause very important to you, whether it's education, healthcare, agriculture, irrigation, water, sanitation, etc. Look around your institute, help less fortunate people, and that will be the great service we can provide. So a great quote from John C. Maxwell, a person, a great leader who has written a number of books on leadership. A leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Now, important thing to remember, leadership is not about being in charge, but it is all about taking care of those in your charge. So you see the difference there. So Ralph Waldo Emerson says that the leaders do not go where the path may lead, they go instead where there is no path, and they leave a trail. So leaders are the trailblazers. So if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are already a leader. So try to think about helping, motivating your students, your learners to do the best they can do in their life. That's the role of the faculty. Now here, I wanted to share a very nice thing about what the leadership lessons we can learn from Lord Ganesha. This is what happened about 3 years back when we were at a wedding party in Hawaii. Priest was flown in from Atlanta in Georgia, and during the ceremony he mentioned that we can learn lots of leadership lessons from the Lord Ganesha. So big head of the Lord signifies source of wisdom, big ears signify capacity to listen, flapping ears signify keeping bad information out, the trunk signifies strength and flexibility, big stomach signifies ability to hold information, digest, and integrate. Small eyes signify ability to contemplate. Small vehicle signifies humility and control over vasanas. And Ganesha is married to Riddhi and Siddhi, still no ego. So great lessons we can learn from Lord Ganesha. Importance of soft skills. When you take a look at the latest surveys, more than 90% of the executives are looking for better soft skills in the new hires. And the last bullet is very instructive. For a new hire, ability to work on a team is more important than the analytical or problem solving skills. Unfortunately, at the India scene, students and even the institutes do not focus much on the soft skills. It's all about hard skills, mugging up and spilling out, vomiting in the exam. So we neglect the soft skill, and as a result, they don't find a good placement. And even if they find a placement, they are not able to hold the jobs or make progress. So soft skills are critical. I put it as a life skills. And communication is one of the biggest soft skills we need to think about. Here it says no matter what job you have in life, success is determined 5% by your academic credential, 15% by professional experiences, but 80% by your communication skills, and fill in the blank: leadership, decision making, time management, teamwork, problem solving, project management, risk management, etc. So we need to empower our students, and particularly we as a faculty need to be proficient in soft skills to start with, so we can empower them with the soft skills. So this is about lifelong learning. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, he was the Vice Chancellor at Banaras Hindu University, my alma mater. Then he became the Vice President of India and then the President. He says, when we think we know, we cease to learn. So do not fall in the trap that you know it all. Because when we have that attitude, we know it all, we stop learning. So famous football coach from University of Notre Dame, Lou Holt, says, the ability is what you are capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, but it is the attitude that will determine how well you do it. So if you are looking for people on a team or hiring new people, new faculty, look for positive attitude, can do, rather than negative attitude, no, it cannot be done, I won't do it. They will not be the most successful one. When you receive the presentation, there are two short assignments. Leadership style quiz. By taking that short 13 question quiz, you can find out whether you are authoritarian, participative, or delegative. And if you have not taken the Myers-Briggs type indicator test, by downloading Excel file, answering 74 questions, you will get your own Myers-Briggs type indicator, 4 letters, which signifies your aptitude and where you will succeed in life in a team setting. Now I'm going to share a very short YouTube on leadership principles from the life of an eagle.